Welcome back, guys. Happy New Year. Probably said that in a couple of videos, but Happy New Year. I was so excited to end my year with such a great series. I did it, guys. I finished Dark Age and Lightbringer. Lightbringer was almost going to be a 2026 finish, but we made it. And this this series just reminds me so much of why I like fantasy. I love political fantasy, and it's just so good. um, I was debating about how I want to review these last two books because a lot happens. Obviously, I'm going to have to speak in spoilers because I can't say everything I want to say without spoilers. But my unspoiler point of view is you need to read this. If you like political fantasy, if you like Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones, Joe Abercrombie, The Blade itself, you will like this. Just because it's in the, like when you go to Barnes and Nobles and it's in the sci-fi section, this is the most light sci-fi with it being more political. There's still some sci-fi elements. Obviously, they are cruising around in space. Um, they start in Mars. Like, there is a lot of sci-fi elements, but it's what we love in the fantasy realm that Pierce Brown did such a good job with trying to incorporate the two really, really well. So basically, kind of how I think I'm going to kind of review this is in this video, I'm just going to kind of tell you if I had a couple cons. Like, even though I gave these books 5 stars, there is still a couple of things that, I myself are a little worried about going through. And I think what I'm going to start with, which spoilers for the rest of this video, I want to talk about the character Cassius and how he is handled. So in Iron Gold, he is supposed to be dead. He dies, and then he just appears. And then I was like, because my boyfriend read these books before I did and finished them. Not the he finished the whole series. I introduced him. Okay. So I was like, when I got to that part, I was like, well, is he a ghost? Like, is he really Cassius? Like, brought back to life? And it sounds like he was Cassius brought back to life. And that part just, as much as I love the character Cassius, like, he stole my heart from like day one of meeting him and everything. I would have rather just gone through the story without him like coming back. I just thought that was kind of weird. And the baby scene. I don't know if I can even talk about the baby scene on YouTube, guys. But if you know, you know, type of thing. I thought that was a little too far in some ways. I think if it was like an adult, like I would have been like, okay. And then obviously, like, we go through it with one, like with the mother, and then we get to the point where Severo has to know because it's Severo's son. And then we have to go through the whole thing all over again. I was just like, okay, I get it. We're good. And then I'm like, okay, in Red God, we're going to have to go through it a third time because they're going to reunite, is what I'm thinking. So that was like my two cons that I was like, okay. But the rest of it, and Lysander just being Lysander sometimes is kind of hard to read sometimes. And that desert scene was a little too long, in my opinion. Okay, negative aside, I'm just going to go briefly how I felt about each character story. And then I think further down the line, I might go a little bit deeper into each character. Maybe once we get closer to Red God, I might listen to the graphic audio. I do listen to the regular audio for these because I feel so immersed. I've tried to read these physically with my eyeballs. It just doesn't work. You have to hear the dialogue. I like hearing I don't know if it's a full cast or if it's just a couple people, but the narrators do such a good job separating each character where it's easy to figure out, okay, I'm in this point of view. Oh, I'm in this point of view. Especially like when you're in the middle of the chapter, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know which point of view I am. And then they start talking and you're like, okay, cool. Because they'll start like with I and I'm like, I don't know. But it's okay. So basically, just kind of to break it down softly, Iron Gold, we end with Darrow's son getting kidnapped by Ephraim. That's how we end off that. And then with the interrogation of Lyria, and then it just, Dark Age just picks up where we left off with all that. And what I appreciate from Pierce Brown is he only lets that last in one book. Because it could have lasted a lot longer, but it only lasted in one book, thank goodness. Because I was like, let's not drag this out. But I love the character of Ephraim. He's probably going to be the one I'm going to go most dive into because he's only in Dark Age. Ephraim to me he develops so quickly to the point where I think the kidnapping of Pax was devastating. But I think Pax needed to meet Ephraim. I think he needed to understand what it was like to be of even a lower than a red, because he was a gray. So Pax needed to understand that, because I think he needed to understand what his father was fighting for, because Pax is really mad at Darrow and Iron Gold for leaving. And trying to, finish the war that, Darrow pretty much started, but he's like, I need to finish this. And I think with meeting Ephraim and having to fight for yourself at such a young age is really, I think that was really good character building. I'm sorry that he had to go through that, but you actually saw Pax as a character by himself, where I think if Pierce Brown decided to come back to this world and write more books, and if he wrote it from Pax's point of view, I wouldn't care, because I've seen Pax as a character, not as just Darrow's son and Virginia's son. I see Pax as a character, so if Pierce Brown's kind of setting it up like that. I'm not sure. Based off of interviews, he's sounding like he wants to take a break from this world. I'm so up for whatever Pierce Brown wants to write after Red God. Let me just put it that way. But Pax needed that character development. Because having two very powerful parents like Pax has, he hasn't had to do the struggling thing, which is you really don't want to have to watch kids go through life suffering. But when they're in that type of privilege and they get the opportunity to see the other point of view, it's really important, especially when you're talking about somebody that might one day lead a country or lead an army. So I think that was really important, and Ephraim is such a good character for that. And his growth, the way he treats the kids, and protects them, teaches them how to do everything. Like Ephraim is so good, and how he protects Sephi for as long as he can. It's just he's the goat. He's really is the goat of Dark Age. And then you have Lyria. I see that name, and for some reason, I always think like the Golden Compass, and the song that Kate Bush sings in that movie. If you know, you know on that one. Let me see if there's character names. I need assistance. I think it was in Lightbright. You know, if you have more than one character, can we please have character names in books? That would be great. I love you. I would love that. Okay, so Victra and Lyria go and try to find Pax. Victra and Lyria's relationship, pretty much through Dark Age, is really good and really interesting. And then I do like how you kind of see her getting really close to Victra, and then you get to see the same thing, like her Sevro's relationship with her as well. It kind of connects the two characters, Victra and Sevro, in a way, because of the fact that you have a person in common then that can relay information of what's kind of going on. And I think their relationship goes from like, oh, you're a weapon, to like, you're a human being that's helped me go through this traumatic experience, with the birth and the death of their son, which I don't know. Alexius. I can sometimes get those Greek names, sometimes I can't. I do apologize, guys. And that was traumatic for everybody around them, because they go to this house and they think, oh, we're safe. And when it comes to like this idea of war, and when you find a safe place, like you're like, okay, we can calm down. Victra can have her kid, and then we'll head out. Basically, what was the plan? And to be so burnt by the people around them was so tragic. And to have to watch Victra go through all that, plus she gets, put in prison, and everything like that. Thank goodness for Pax and Ephraim on that one, because I didn't want to lose any of them. Thank goodness for this right here, guys. I kind of want to talk about Lysander just in general. I did a video about the Odyssey and the Iliad, and how it affects Red Rising, and how I think it relates. I don't know if Pierce Brown ever was like, oh, I'm going to read the Iliad and the Odyssey and then put it in space. But it's very similar themes. So, working with this idea of Lysander, and I might go deeper into his character, because he's interesting in a way where it's this idea of, should you have killed the kid of the monarch? Like, is this child going to destroy you, or are they going to help you? And you feel the punishment of that in Lightbringer, finally. And the idea of the Lightbringer, in that video, I actually even go into, I just finished Iron Gold and I had some predictions. So Lightbringer, I thought was going to be some type of weapon, which it ends up being the Morning Star, which is Darrow's ship that gets confiscated by Lysander, and then they call him the Lightbringer, because he's bringing the golds back up into power, and he is bringing the light out of the Dark Age, because the Dark Age is this whole rebellion against the golds, and the golds are finally losing, and then Lysander is the light, and that is my prediction of what the titles mean. But what Sevro was, this is the complicated thing about this kind of theme of, do you kill the child over the parent's actions? And I'm going to spoil the Odyssey for just a second, guys. I mean, 15th century literature, or watch Epic the musical. So in the Odyssey, Odysseus decides to take the child and throw him off of a wall. Let's put it that way. In Red Rising, you have a similar situation where Darrow needs to make the same choice. And Darrow decides, let Lysander live. I will send him with Cassius. Cassius will change him. He will be a good boy, if not a good ally in the future, is what Darrow's thinking. That is not the case. At the end of Lightbringer, we have the scene with Cassius again, and Lysander betrays Cassius in a very tragic and terrible way. So obviously, having the two pieces of literature and having that complicated situation where it's like, what, like, it's the whole nature versus nurture thing and everything like that, if you want to go into the psychology of it. But who's right, who's wrong? I mean, if you're looking at the Red Rising side, obviously Darrow looks like, we should have killed Lysander with his grandmother, and a lot of this drama would have been solved. But do I understand Darrow's point of view? Yes, because he's just a child. He has life to live. He can learn from somebody else how to treat others and not be as revenge heavy. Obviously, that's not the case. Lysander was like, sees this as a child, like, puts it in his internal being, and just is like after Darrow the whole rest of this whole series that we're on now. So really, that whole concept is based off of the reader to decide what should have been the fate of Lysander in, was it Morning? I think that happened in Morning Star. I could be wrong on my books. I do apologize. It's been a minute since I read the first trilogy. But that is something that Pierce Brown does a really good job. Like, he he puts the question not only in front of his characters, but in front of his audience themselves. And what would you have chosen in that situation based off of all the information that you've gathered? And that's why it's such a hard decision for Darrow and for the audience of what would have been the best choice. And there's really no good choice. And there's not really a logical choice because of the factor that we could have potentially had a Lysander that was good, that followed Cassius to a T and found the good in humanity, and total 360 of a person that's not based off of their grandmother at all, that internally is like, yes, my Darrow did kill my grandmother, but on a thing, he just kind of forgives Darrow and they move on. That's obviously not the case, but that could have been something that we as an audience and as Darrow could have seen. I mean, it could have went two directions. I think the only person I haven't really talked about that's like a major character is Virginia or Mustang. I love Mustang. And the interesting thing about Darrow and Mustang as people is that we saw Darrow and Mustang first as like, we're at war, we're fighting for our lives, and after Morningstar, things calm down, they're settling down. She is, now the leader of the area. Sovereign. She's the sovereign. And I think it really changes her because she's now somebody that knows what peace is like. And that can really change a person and how they interact to situations. Like, it can really close you off to who you were. Like, I don't want to cause violence again because I saw how much it hurt my family. And Darrow is a little bit different, where I think Darrow needs that constantly, that constant trauma, where I think Mustang is like okay with being a governmental official, and that's it. Like, if she never had to punch another person in the face, like, she would be fine. I just don't think Darrow likes that level of peace. And that's something that when she's put in a situation like she is in Dark Age, we finally really get to see Mustang come out. And when Mustang comes out, it's this epic scene where she's like in the middle of a crowd, everybody's attacking everybody, it's a lot of chaos, and she finally takes ownership of herself and she finds herself again. Because I think there is a part of her that's Virginia and there's a part of her that's Mustang. And Mustang went down like in her inner core, and I think there's a perfect balance of the two. Where, and she kind of says this later on, where she fell in love with Darrow, but he also has to be the Reaper. And that's kind of how I feel about her. Like, Darrow fell in love with Virginia, but she has to be Mustang in certain circumstances. And that just makes them such a power couple because, like, you have Virginia as just this study of logic And then you have Darrow that's like, I need to go do something about this. And usually that means violence. And sometimes violence is not the political right thing to do. And that's what Mustang is really good at. Mustang is really good at saying, hey, Darrow, yeah, no. And I think that's something that I'm hoping we see more of that balance in Red God. We get more of Virginia in Dark Age than we do in Lightbringer. She does come up occasionally, but I feel like Dark Age was her reawakening. And then she's working to gain the army. So when Darrow gets back, he has an army, she has an army, and we're going to, in this epic with probably a big, huge war, with a lot of battles, a lot of death. I'm thinking we're probably going to see some major characters die because it's the end. My prediction, if I had to make any, I don't think we're going to lose any of the kids. So Electra, which is the daughter of Sevro and Victra. Pax, I think, is going to live. Lysander definitely has to die. Atlantia has to die. Because if you let those two live, there's still going to be chaos. And then I don't know what they're going to do I don't know what Pierce Brown's plan for Darrow is. There's a couple of different ways he can approach it. The way I'm hoping he approaches it, where it's like, it's not like a happily ever after, but I hope like he gets to kind of live. I'm hoping, but I'm kind of like at the same time with what he did in Iron God, like Iron Gold. Sorry, not Iron God. Iron Gold, like, can he really be forgiven for that? But I don't know. We'll just have to see kind of when we get to that point, and I'm really excited for that point. But anyway, if you made it this far, like, thank you very much. I know this was a long video. But I had a lot to talk about. Like, these books are so good. So good. And I just kind of wanted to leave this video with a quote. This is on the last page of Lightbringer. This is the last chapter of Darrow. I love you. I'm coming home. I have an army. I have an armada. We will win. For Eo, for Ragnar, for Fitchner, for Cassius, for them all. It's going to be, I think Red God is going to probably be the most epic Red Rising novels that we have gotten so far. But thank you so much. You guys have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Videos Thursday and Sunday. There is one overlap with, there's a Library Love episode that's going to be on Thursday because I ran out of Sundays. So, and I haven't been not interested in other media, but there hasn't been a lot of other media that I've been wanting to talk about. So there's a couple of book stuff that's going to be on Thursdays. But anyway, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.